Israelite has made such a recovery because he is from Lincoln County. And that's where my mama come from. And let me tell you, there is some tough folk from down through there in them hollers. But anyway, glad to see everybody out tonight. Turn to Exodus chapter 20, verses 1 through, and I wrote a question mark here. So it'll be just a few verses there. Exodus chapter 20, verse 1, and God spoke all these words, saying, I am the Lord thy God, which hath brought thee out of the land of Egypt and of the house of bondage. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything is in heaven above us, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For the Lord thy God, I am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. And that is the first commandment. So what I wanted to talk about tonight is idolatry. There is later on there where the Israelites had gotten impatient waiting on Moses to come back from Mount Sinai, and they had built a golden calf, and they had went to Aaron and had him build it. But idolatry is the definition is excessive devotion to and reverence for a person or thing. And the biblical definition is the worship of anything other than the one true God, including physical idols, but also maybe a person or object or even a desire. And there's many examples of idols and idolatry in the Bible. Possibly the most, as I said before, would be the golden calf built during the book in the book of Exodus. And if you look at the history of the Israelites, starting in the book of Exodus, they weren't really patient people. They tended to get to be a little bit impatient and start complaining pretty quick. I mean, they parted, God parted the Red Sea, and they no more got across there, and they were complaining, and it's human. We're never satisfied, it seems. But so it's not been very long. We don't know how long Moses was up there before they started complaining. But in Exodus chapter 32, verse 1, said, when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron and said unto him, Up, make us gods which shall go up before us. As for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we knew not what has become of him. So at the most, he hadn't even been gone 40 days, and they're already losing their faith, and they're already saying, let's go do something else. The God that's delivered us, and the God that's done all these things for us, and the God that's helped us, and the God that's kept us going, and the God that's fed us, and the God that's taken care of us. We're kind of not real satisfied with that because Moses went to Mount Sinai and he's not come back. So their big answer was to build a golden calf and worship a false god and a false idol. And so they had quite a party there, did some things I won't go into, but let's just say it was wrong. They worshiped it, and they even declared a feast. In the book of Daniel, chapter 3, verse 1 through 6, we see that King Nebuchadnezzar, he commissioned a statue of himself that was like 90 feet tall, and said, anybody doesn't worship this, we're going to burn them in the fiery furnace. And you know what happened with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So, idolatry. That's what I want to talk about tonight. You might be asking, what does that have to do with us today? After all, we're not, building statues of ourselves, or, I thought it might not be a bad idea, Brother Jason, to have a statue of me at the entrance to our estate. But I guess I'm the only one that felt that way. Wouldn't that be cool? He's not really listening. Okay, anyways. No, I'm just kidding. We're not building statues. We're not building golden calves in our backyard or anything like that. But, so what's that got to do with us today? Well, folks, as time changes, so do the idols. And that's what I want to talk about tonight for just a little bit. Let's look again at the definition of what an idol is. Anything that, well, now I can say this the proper way. I can say idle, or I can say it the West Virginia way, which is idle. Amen. So an idol could be a lot of different things. High on the list of things that we can idolize would be money. There's nothing wrong with money. One of the most misquoted verses in the Bible is, money is the root of all evil. That's not what it says. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. Perhaps the pursuit of it, the prioritizing of it. We've got to have it. Money's really just a tool. We can use a hammer to build things, or be like me to hit yourself with the hammer. And we use money to pay for things, so money matters. It's good to have it, but sometimes the chasing of it can turn into a real trap. It can become an idol. So we have to be careful. We have to be careful, and what I want to get across tonight too is keep things in priority. Keep your first priorities first. Keep things in perspective. I know it's one of the things that our kids are long grown up and gone, but when our kids were growing up, one of the biggest problems that I had was, the hardest thing was trying to balance that line between, being there for them and going to the ball games and the cheerleague. I tell you what, Jeff went through it up there. What was it? 10, 11 years we lived at the ball field, or we lived at Fairhaven. It was just something it just went on and on. But before you know it, it's over with. But you try to be there for them. But I was in sales, and I tried to be a good salesman, and I was an insurance agent. And somebody told me when I first started, you probably heard this before. If you have heard it before, go ahead and laugh again, because I always thought it was funny. But anyway, they said you're not going to be able to sell anything, but they were wrong. The first couple of years, I ended up selling my fishing rods and my guns, and a lot of stuff. I sold a lot of stuff. And I was so determined to do a good job. I stayed in that for almost 15 years, which is about 14 years too long, I think. But I was just trying to, and let me say this too, a man ought to work. A man ought to take care of his family. I want to throw this in just for free, even though I wrote it down. One of the reasons we have so much crime and poor conduct in the world is not idolatry necessarily, but idleness, the doing of nothing, the lack of any drive or zeal towards anything. I've told some of the guys here at church, I said I'll get on YouTube, and by the way, I'm YouTube certified, Brother Dwight, and all sorts of things. It's a great time to live in, amen. But I got on there one night, and I got watching these guys, these early lumberjacks. Now, this was before, Brother Jeff, of the advent of the chainsaw, and there was nothing but axes and two-man saws and crazy men. And they'd get out there, and they'd saw back and forth, and this tree's this big around, and it'd take them 9 hours to drop it, and man, they didn't have time to get into trouble, is what I'm trying to say. Goodness gracious, you work like that. They said their average caloric intake was 4,000 calories a day, and none of them was fat. I'm just saying, being idle is not good. We're not made to be idle. It's good to rest for a little while, but we need to stay busy. But a job, folks, is just a means to an end. Our careers can turn into a big thing. I've had people talk to me when I tried to go into sales. They said, well, what kind of a career would you like to have? And, I fell in for all that and everything. But, let me tell you, and I've said this before, I think I said it in a Sunday school a few months ago. By the time the ink dries on your resignation or retirement papers, wherever you've at and how much everything you think you've meant to them, they're already trying to find your replacement. And that's just what it is. But money, career can be an idol. Sometimes we can idolize people. Some of you is old enough to remember, most of you in here can remember Elvis. Some remember the Beatles, okay? and they had this thing called Beatlemania. And if you look back some of these tapes and everything in these videos, these people were, mostly girls, were just going completely crazy, man. I mean, they were crying, they were shaking on the ground, they were going insane. And you say, well, you know, that's idolizing somebody. I mean, they're losing their mind over a person. You know, like now you've got, I guess you've got Taylor Swift, you know, idolizing somebody. Our stuff or the pursuit of it can become an idol. I'm saying it the wrong way again, idol, Jeff. Having stuff. Everybody likes to have stuff. I become, I don't know if I've ever even told this story to some of you or not, but it's true. I become obsessed several years ago with having a boat. Me and Kayla rented a boat and went out there on Beach Fork, and I said, man, I've got to get a boat. I'm going to get me a boat, and you're not going to believe this. After hours and hours and hours of being on eBay, I won a 20-foot cabin cruiser. And there was nothing wrong with it. And it was docked right here in Charleston. It was right there by UC in that rich neighborhood and everything, and it was a lawyer. He had donated it to this outfit, a Christian outfit that sold it, and they take the money and they donate it to missionaries or whatever. So I thought, I'm getting a boat and I'm going to serve God at the same time, amen. And I won it for $275. I had a red on white cabin cruiser, and I was in tall cotton. Let me tell you what. I remember calling her and telling her that I'd won a boat. I said, we've got a boat. I was already feeling my social status go up by the second, Brother Jeff. I had a couple of little problems with that, though. I didn't have anywhere to park it. I didn't have no way to get it out of the water. And it was set up there, and I went down and looked at it, you know, and while I was trying to find a trailer and everything, but the lady took me down there. Her son's a lawyer. He took me down there, or she took me down there, and I looked around at it, and there was a little bit of beer cans and some other stuff in the bottom. She said the kids next door has been partying in it, and I've been into it with them. But it was, you know, it was docked up there. I was thrilled. You know, I had it for a couple of weeks before what I'm about to tell you happened to it. Sometimes I'd go and I'd get there, just pretend like I was driving it, you know. Man, I was tickled to death, you know, ahoy, and all that stuff. And I was thrilled to death. I thought about how good I'd look driving around with my tan, you know, in the in crowd on the river. November 16th, I'd had it a few weeks, I guess, is a bad day. I got into a difference of opinion with my boss at work, and I ended up getting sent home for the day. And I remember very well, he lied and I called him on it, okay? Anyway, I remember sitting down in the chair and I got a call from the lady that had the boat, and she called me and she said, the boat has sunk. And I said, well, to myself, I said, well, she's overthinking this, you know. I grabbed a sump pump and I drove there across the river, and I got up there. I walked off the end of the dock, and the boat was in about 8 feet of water. And I looked at the sump pump, there were little fish swimming around it. And I looked at the sump pump, I said, I don't think it's gonna work. Well, to make a long story just a little bit longer, I began to get very nervous about it, you know, because what am I supposed to do? So I started just calling people, and they said, well, we can come down and tow it out of there, pull it out, but it's like $3,500 and then $300 an hour for my $275 boat. And finally and then I talked to one guy that docks up in Malden, and he said, well, it doesn't have an oil slick around it, does it? I said, slightly, yeah, an oil slick. And he said, oh boy, EPA gets around that to fine start at $30,000. So I finally got a hold of a guy. He pumped it up. He got it out of there. And my $275 boat cost me about $2,300 to get pulled out of the water. And the guy says to me, he says, what do you want me to do with this? I said, you can have it. It's bad luck. It's cursed. It's jinxed. Whatever the word you want to use, I don't want it. And he took it. And what I'm trying to get to is this, and it's an absolute true story there. What I'm trying to get to is this, is that the pursuit of that overtook my better sense. Now, I don't think I did get my $275 back from it, but it turned out that the kids evidently had come down and pulled the plug for no good reason. But I'm saying that things can be idols, and we can get things out of perspective, and we can get things wrong, and sometimes the pursuit of things is just like the Israelites. It's real easy, folks, to get out of control with something. I guess I've got what I've called an obsessive compulsive personality in a lot of ways. You know, like if I'm going down a road, if my rear view mirror is not lined up completely right with the back of my pickup truck, if it's crooked, I can't drive. Yeah, see what I'm saying? Just stuff like that. But what I'm saying is the devil is going to find what's your big weakness is, and he ain't ever going to give up. Okay? He's never going to quit. I'm going to take about 2 or 3 minutes here and talk about the last thing, the last idol. There's a lot of things out there that can be used for good and bad. Here's one of the worst ones. I think the iPhone, or this type of phone, is probably one of the best inventions there ever was. I think it's changed the world, but I think it's also not very good in some ways. Okay? We can't get away from it. I drive up and down the road, and I come by, we were doing 70 miles an hour the other day, or I come up behind somebody doing 40, which is just as dangerous as going too fast. And what is it? They're this. They're not paying attention. I went to court a few years ago. I fought a ticket because the officer didn't sign it up on the advice of somebody. And I was 31st out of 32 people in traffic court, and 27 of those were people that had gotten tickets for using electronic devices while driving. It can be a big help. It can also be a really big problem. It's dangerous. We can't stay off of it. We did without them for years and years. And now we've got to know what everybody's doing, and everybody's got to know what we're doing. How many likes did I get? I'm mad at him because he didn't like what I posted, Jeff. She's mad at me because she didn't like what I posted. And it goes on and on and on and on. It's a distraction, folks. This is my own personal conviction. I don't bring it into church. I'll tell you why, because I don't want to get distracted by anything, because when I come to church, I feel like I would like to try to be focused on God. That's my personal conviction. Maybe we're our own idols. Why do you say we're our own idols? Well, we're taking selfies. You know. My goodness gracious, when did we become so in love with ourselves? I take a look in the mirror, I don't really like what I see. Bad timing. I had a full-length mirror outside the shower in the basement. I walked out one day and I shoved a file cabinet in front of it. Now all I can see is this. Why are we so in love with ourselves? We're our own idols, aren't we? Man, we love us, don't we? What that Brother Jim said Sunday morning, we really love ourselves. We can be our own idol, we really can. And there's a lot of other things I could go into, but we just need to pay attention to what's going on. Pay attention and know this, that you know that you've got a weakness somewhere, I've got a weakness somewhere, and the devil is going to try to exploit that. He's never going to stop. He's never going to give up. He's never going to quit. What might bother you may not bother me. What bothered you 20 years ago may not bother you today. I don't know how the Israelites got so far off within a small 40-day period, but they did. What are we worshiping? What are we worshiping? What takes our attention away from God? Here's one last thing. I just thought of it. You say, well, now you can read the Bible on your phone, and I've done that, and I think that's great. Let me say it's a tool. It can be used for good. It can also distract us. Maybe what we would do if I'm preaching to myself now. Maybe we ought to put on a scale the amount of time we spend on our phone just flipping through useless things and compare that to the amount of time we spend in prayer and reading the Bible. Yeah. Because it's real easy to get so involved in something that really don't matter. These Israelites were just, man, they got off track really fast. And it's amazing to me how fast we can get off track. But you know what? God didn't move. God didn't change. His way didn't change. His attitude didn't change. We do. We're the ones that get messed up. Okay, I'm done. You want to... What? Yeah, please do dismiss.